Imagine if we had a Democrat president and a Democrat Congress in 2020. They would shut down your free speech, use the power of the law to punish their opponents, which they're trying to do now anyway. They'll always be trying to shield themselves. They would strip Americans of their constitutional rights while flooding the country with illegal immigrants in the hopes it will expand their political base and they'll get votes someplace down the future. That's what it's about.
There we have it, the president making his case for another 4 years. And you think about this, if you're President Trump, why in the world would you run for 4 more years unless you really love America and understand what's at stake?
Are you ready? First we do Make America Great Again, then we do Keep America Great. Let me hear it. Ready? Make America Great Again. Not bad. Not bad. If I would have said that 3 years ago, it wouldn't be a contest, right? You ready? Keep America Great.
There we have it, the president of the United States. And you have to wonder what the president is fighting against. Get this. Earlier we were talking about the state of east of the Great River, and maybe we should just call this the East of the Great River Report to find out what's going on the, I don't want to say devious East Coast, but on the controversial East Coast. First, we had New York City looking to legalize prostitution because prostitution is a victimless crime. Because prostitution is something that everybody does. You can't stop prostitution, everybody. We might as well make money off it. We hear the same argument for other drugs and such, right? What's the harm in legalizing prostitution? Well, now New York State has gone a step further.
New York State Senate is voting on the Green Light Bill, which would give undocumented immigrants the right to driver's licenses. But last week, the Assembly passed the bill, which has the support of Governor Cuomo. Today, Governor Cuomo said he actually may not sign it. CBS 2's Hazel Sanchez explains why.
Undocumented immigrants could soon be allowed to get driver's licenses in New York. But Governor Cuomo says he's not ready to give it the green light yet.
If we pass a bill that winds up targeting undocumented, then shame on all of us.
Republican Representative Nicole Malliotakis voted against the Driver's License Access and Privacy Act, also known as the Green Light Bill, concerned clerks may not be able to validate the documentation immigrants provide.
Duh, because they're here illegally. Who's to say that they have any legitimate documentation? So here we have it in the state of New York, actually thinking about giving illegals the driver's license. And that happened earlier this week. The new law would allow the illegals to get a state driver's license or a learner's permit without a social security number or proof that they're in the country illegally. And by the way, New York is not the first state to do this. It's not the 5th state to do it. It's not the 10th state to do it. It's the 13th state to offer driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants. Can anybody support this? I love this. There are, why do we have a country? And yet, here's the other issue. I was talking to a young lady last week that's worried about the Star ID card. And if you've been married, if you've had your name changed, if you've had any type of issue with your identity, if you've ever had an alias, and this young lady was worried that she'd have to bring in tons of documentation. I have other folks, and I'm sure you as well, they've gone to the place. Maybe they immigrated, came to the country legally, so they have to bring in their birth certificate from said nation. And you have to go through all this documentation to get this real legitimate ID if you're an American. And now you have 13 states that give the licenses to the illegals with no documentation. See, where is the consistency in the federal government? That's why the president should win re-election.
We're going to keep on fighting for every man and woman and child all across this land. With every ounce of heart and might and sweat and soul, we're going to keep making America great again. And then we will indeed keep America great. We will keep it so great. Better than ever before. We're going to keep it better than ever before. And that is why tonight I stand before you to officially launch my campaign for a second term as President of the United States. Thank you.
We're joined by Tea Party Bob, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you today?
I'm anxious to have a little interaction with you, buddy.
Well, I'll tell you, I want to go back to some of my past history. As you know, I spent 40 years on Wall Street. And you need to understand something about what goes on in this country. The politicians and the corporations are tied together. And they are tied together so tightly that people really don't understand it. What's good for America is not necessarily good for the corporation. They don't care about the workers. If you don't think they wanted to see a single-payer health care plan, you're nuts. It's the single largest cost item on their corporate balance sheet, almost everywhere. If you think they don't want globalization, you're nuts. They want free, cheap labor, any place they can get it. So when you start talking about the Republicans and how they are mamsy-pamsy, they got rich from these corporations. They're still getting rich from the corporations. I don't know a congressman or a senator who has gone into Congress and not come out much wealthier than when they went in. I want you to keep that in mind. If indeed somebody like President Trump does not win this next election, and I'm hoping he does, and we wind up with a Democrat, you can be sure this country is going to be a much different place in so many different ways. I don't think people really understand what's going on here and the mechanisms of how the political end and the corporate end are so tied together. So all I can do is urge you to think hard about this if you're even thinking about voting for a Democrat. They are not going to do you any good, and if you want to see harm come to this country, watch what they'll do in 4 years. We saw what Obama did in 8 years. He almost took this country apart. And somebody's going to try to do it again, whether it's AOC or it's Buttigieg or whoever it might be. And Biden, he's gone to sleep. This man has gone to sleep about 10 years ago, and I don't think he's ever going to wake up. So they don't have very much, but, the base is strong for Trump. I'd like to see it get stronger, but there's an awful lot of crazy people out there. I don't know what else to tell you, my friend.
Before you go, breaking news yesterday that now former Congressman Raul Labrador wants to be the chairman of the Republican Party.
I think it's a great step for him. I think we probably need somebody like him in there. I think he is truly a conservative. I've been with him before. I've supported him before. I continue to support him. I think he'd make a good Republican chairman. I think what's going to happen if we don't have him is we're going to get another one of the crony Republicans in there, and we're going to have the same mamsy-pamsy baloney that we've had for years. You need somebody that's going to alter what's going on, make those changes that need to be made. I think he'd be a good, qualified person to do that, and I support him 100%.
You think this is just a way of running for political office in the future?
Very possibly. You know, I think he had a lot of great ideas when he was running for governor. And I still think he lost because he lost the vote, the state employees, because every county where he lost, there were a lot of state employees who voted with their wallets. He threatened to do an awful lot of damage to the bureaucracy.
Well, maybe he should have kept that to himself then.
Absolutely. I understand that. But, you know, people like to hear things like that.
Here's
I think, give him a chance.
Here's the skinny on that, though. And let's look at this objectively, not from our own personal candidates that we were rooting for, right?
Right.
You have to give it to the little campaign that had more resources, a better campaign organization, and a candidate that was not outworked.
Well, you know, I tend to agree with you in some parts. They have a machine. The establishment has a machine, and once they put it into gear, you have IACI, you have all of the lobbyists. They're all behind them 100% because they know they're going to get paid back in the end. When you have people like Alquist and people like Labrador running against them, they're the one-offs. Those are the ones, they don't know what they're going to do. And if they tell them what they're going to do, it's not going to be something they like.
Let me give you another scenario. What would have happened if on KIDO Talk Radio, the day of the election, the day before, either Raul Labrador or Tommy Alquist said, for the good of our own personal political views, they would endorse the other one, and the other one would have gotten out? How would it have played out then?
I think that you might have had a difference. You know, Little did not win by a plurality. I mean, he got 37% of the vote. That's not a winner to me. If one or the other had endorsed the other, I think there's a good chance that you could have seen some difference, but it would have had to have taken place before they started casting absentee ballots. Because a lot of the ballots that came in the last election were absentee ballots. They came in early.
Again, back to the effective organization of the little campaign.
Yeah, but I'm not complaining. I'm telling you, they were very effective.
No, I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying it was a precision effort that I don't know if we'll ever see again. Tea Party Bob, publisher of the Gem State Patriot and King of the North, we appreciate you.
You have yourself a great day today, Kevin. Thank you very much for your show.
Our great friend, Tea Party Bob. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up, the type of America that you want your kids, your grandkids, and even yourself to live in.
Our radical Democrat opponents are driven by hatred, prejudice, and rage. They want to destroy you, and they want to destroy our country as we know it. Not acceptable. It's not going to happen.
Now, coming up next, maybe you supported Ted Cruz in the primary. Maybe you're not down with the president because of his actions, but you love what he's done. Has your opinion changed at all concerning Donald John Trump? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
They come into the United States when they're detained or whatever by Border Patrol. Then they ask for asylum, and then they become asylum seekers. And there's a process.
And, of course, once they do that, they don't show up for their court hearings to determine whether or not they're really here for the asylum or the free room and board. Tim in Nampa with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Tim, good morning.
Hello, Kevin. I was listening to you this morning, and I asked about Cruz supporters and how they feel about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I was heavily invested in Cruz, and I was profoundly disappointed when Trump won the nomination. I thought that Trump at the time was an awful man who'd make a very awful president. But having experienced the last few years and just observed what I have, I can't wait to pull the lever for Trump this next time around.
Tim, what do you say to people like you? Because we had a ton of people that supported Ted Cruz. He won the primary here. The Cruz people were very excited to go to Cleveland. They had a great time, and they held fast to their candidate. And Ted Cruz is a very different candidate than Donald Trump.
That's true, and I think it's mostly personal style or anything else. I was really off-put by Trump in terms of his way he has interacted with people, and I am a true conservative, and I thought that of the candidates that were available to us, Cruz was the best. But like I said, I've been observing the situation pretty carefully and closely, and I've always said that you can judge a lot about a person by who their enemies are, and the people who are so stridently anti-Trump have convinced me more than ever that he's the right man for the job.
Well, Tim, we appreciate you listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Keep up the good work, buddy.
Appreciate you, sir. Traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. KIDO Talk Radio. Traffic. Good morning, Dave. Let's go to Brenda in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Brenda.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you so very, very much that you are the voice for those that really appreciate our country and understand that, we work for a living and we don't have time to research a lot or hear. I don't listen to any of the, I actually don't even watch television, but anyway, to keep us informed. Thank you. But what I have not heard very much is who's running against Mayor Beater or their background. That would be really great if you could kind of get on
that
pre-November, because we've got to change this. There goes our van. If you could, get on, not you, but your team, which I really appreciate all that you guys do. Just a little more information on these people and just start focusing on what we can look at and research. The world's going the way it's going. It's almost prophecy, but it's also we have choices and we can hopefully still, use our rights to, make changes and keep the norm. Actually not norm, but rights for all, certainly. But we have a constitution that our founding fathers created and keep us all safe. And it's just everything's kind of going out of whack. And, it would be that's really my point. It'd be great for you guys to get us more information on the upcoming candidates.
No, I would agree with you on that, and we need to do it. I believe it right now there's just one person who's a member of city council who apparently is she's declared that she's running against Mayor Beater, but we'll have to work on that.
I heard two, but yeah, and just so if they're on our side kind of thing, let's give them their support.
Hold on. I don't know if they're on our side. I think it's who wants to be the mayor of Boise should be who's the most liberal in Idaho. I think that's the coexisting title. Unfortunately, and it'd be interesting if you had somebody who was a business person, an entrepreneur, who in fact decided I'm going to throw my hat into the ring. I'm going to make this happen. And as Donald Trump has done in Washington, they could do that for the city of Boise.
Yes, sir. You bet. Yeah, because I've seen the expanded growth, crazy out. We came here about at least 25 years ago from Southern California, and it's from one pit to another, and I see it's just changing so rapidly. It's not funny, and it's not good. There's a lot of good in the growth, but not, the behind-the-scenes stuff where we're paying for refugees or illegals, and I work with elderlies and seniors, and they're on limited budgets, and it's just not fair how it's just come in so rapidly and it's just railroading everybody, and everybody's, that the good seeds are fleeing, and I totally concur with Tea Party Bob. Love him. So if you could get more information on any, or even, I don't know, gosh, what could we do? Encourage someone like a up-and-coming Trump, love him, to run. Otherwise, it's toast. Mayor Boehner has got to go, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Brenda, and we'll get on that. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Okay, have a great day, honey.
All right, God bless. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Maggie. And let's go to Eben Brown in Orlando, Florida, with a review of the president's kickoff party. Eben, good morning.
Good morning.
So, how was it?
It was quite the event. When the president has a big rally like he so often does, he often will fill a small stadium and get a pretty good crowd into a big stadium. Normally, they don't fill the upper deck. Last night, they filled the upper deck. You had about 20,000 plus inside the arena in downtown Orlando. This is where the Orlando Magic play. And it was quite loud in there. It was just as loud as a sports event or a rock concert or something like that. It was quite astounding. The president is going to be, in my estimation, will be making Florida a major part of his campaign. It is a must-win for him. He did win it in 2016, but barely. His political allies that ran in 2018 for statewide office, for governor and U.S. Senate, did win, but only after a recount, and so their victories were just by tenths of a percent. So the president needs to pay attention here. This is a very big electoral prize, and could easily swing out of his favor if he's not playing his game right.
I imagine everybody there was very excited. In fact, people were standing in hours to get in, from what I understand.
Yeah, you even had some people that were there the day before, and they camped overnight. It was quite a crowd in the outdoor area, and then everyone moved inside when the gates opened. The outdoor area had a big screen and live music and food trucks, and was really a thing that people could go spend the day and enjoy themselves at.
Right, and I guess the highlight was the president being there, and how do you describe his speech and the reaction of it?
Well, the speech, look, this is a gathering of friends. Everyone in that room is already there going to vote for the president. So as you do with your friends, you get together and you discuss all the cool stuff you did in the past, whether it was the football game in senior year of high school or whatever it is you did. And in this case for the president, they get up and they talk about the 2016 election and the wins that they've had in Congress. And this is done to motivate these people to go out and essentially campaign for him. If each one of these people who were in this stadium stays enthused and goes out and finds three people that could be on the fence and can convince one or two or even all three of them to vote for the president, then this rally has done its job. That's a good position to be in as an incumbent president.
And speaking of a good position, apparently the fundraising is going well, and the president not taking anything for granted, kicking off his reelection officially yesterday. Eben, do you think that this is unusual? Is this early or right on time for presidents to announce their reelection?
I think it's right on time. I mean, ultimately the campaign never ended and won't end. That's just sort of the reality, I think, of the way we live today. But to put the concerted effort in to say, okay, from here on in, we're concentrating on this big time. That's saying something. It seems like it's a bit early, but I don't know if it really is.
I suppose, except if you live in New Hampshire or Iowa, and they're in mid-season form already.
Well, yes, they are. Those are the early primary states and caucus states, and they are expecting to have a big Democratic presence, as there's 20 some odd Democrats hoping to be the nominee. So they kind of relish in those roles in Iowa, Iowa and New Hampshire. It's their turn to, or their time to shine in the political world. Because they don't end up being very prominent in the general election. They're not worth big electoral points. So the primaries, they kind of pride themselves on being those first contests where candidates make their bones.
Eben Brown, Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you, sir.
You got it.
All right, our great friend Eben Brown joining us. Review and commentary of President Trump and his rally from last night.
Together, we will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again.
And there we have it. The President of the United States. The President of the United States speaking proudly about this country. When's the last time outside of Ronald Reagan and maybe George W. Bush that you've heard a president not talk about a new world order, but you've heard a president talk about the greatness of the United States of America? Contrast that with what we have with Bernie Sanders. Contrast that with what we have with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Contrast that with what we have with Elizabeth Warren. And who would you want to lead your country for the next 4 years? Maybe it's this guy.
But we got a lot to do. But our job, most importantly, is to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. Our job is to keep our eyes on the prize, which is creating a decent life for all people. Our job is to resist Trump's effort to divide us up.
You know, his syntax is very interesting. Do you know what I mean? We have to stop the most dangerous. And again, maybe it's something in my morning tea this morning that I'm a little, whatever you want to call it. But at 580-5436-580-KIDO, the most dangerous president ever. Really.
Listening to Trump made me feel very much that he is a man living in a parallel universe, a man way out of touch with the needs of ordinary people, and a man who must be defeated. And I can understand that he attacks me or other Democratic candidates because poll after poll is showing the country that Trump is falling further behind in terms of his ability to get reelected.
No, Bernie, you're falling further and further behind of Elizabeth Warren, Mayor Pete, and old Joe. Now, remember, I want you to examine this. The inspirational tone of the President of the United States and the Debbie Downer Democrats. If you missed it, the best of the President on KIDO Talk Radio.
And remember, the only thing these corrupt politicians will understand is an earthquake at the ballot box. That's what they will understand, and they're going to see it.
To keep America great, we have to re-elect a president who's been fighting for you every day.
If I got a subpoena, think of this. If I got a subpoena for emails, if I deleted one email like a love note to Melania, it's the electric chair for Trump.
Thanks to the president's stand, Mexico has done more to secure our border in the last 10 days than the Democrats in Congress have done in the last 10 years.
Tonight, I stand before you to officially launch my campaign for a second term as President of the United States. Thank you.
How can you not be inspired by the President of the United States? As we said earlier, perhaps the only person that could beat the president is Joe Biden, because you're going to have a bunch of squishy Republicans saying, we can deal with Joe. We want our party back. We want the Chamber of Commerce to run everything. We want China to once again stick it to us. Mexico to stick it to us. We're tired of the deplorables. We're tired of Vice President Pence and his Christianity. Think about that for a moment. That's the only way, because you've got, 45% of America backing President Trump right now, and I think that's low. But remember the Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney wing of the Republican Party.
Now the pollsters and pundits say our task won't be easy, just like they said before. But you all know better. We made history in 2016, and we're going to make history again in 2020 when we reelect the 45th President of the United States to 4 more years.
There we have it, 4 more years. Coming up, your thoughts on that, plus a disturbing story, one of them that we've linked to on KIDOTalkRadio.com, concerning kids and marijuana. And I know a lot of you passionately disagree with me on marijuana. You're going, man, dude, it must be the summer. You're going to your card one too many times. We're tired of talking about marijuana. Okay. I'm not going to raise my voice, and I hope that you don't as well. But I'd like for you to hear some information coming out of the states of Colorado and Washington when it comes to kids and their access to this drug and the detrimental impact it's having on children. And then let's have a discussion before Glenn Beck. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And the fight continues on. Glenn Beck coming up, Dave Ramsey, Sean Hannity, who's been on fire lately, and I was trying to think of something cute to say about Lars Larson. He just does a great show this afternoon beginning at 6. Kevin Miller here, and we'd love to get your thoughts on the president, but a disturbing story coming from the Washington Post. And I love going back and forth with you. I believe that there is an issue in the state of Idaho. There are a few issues that we can all tackle and hopefully come to a rational solution on. And the first has to do with the idea of expanding marijuana rights, the marijuana wars, that sort of thing. And I do believe there will be, for lack of a better term, marijuana wars coming to the state of Idaho. I believe it's subtly here, covertly, where you have pot shops and others buying influence, buying politicians, as we saw in Ontario, Oregon, to tear down the wall. To tear down the wall and allow medical marijuana in. If you go to our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, I sent an app alert out about it yesterday. In other words, you get a blast from me or from the station whenever there's a big news story or a story that you'd like to talk about. It's free. You can go to the App Store, you can go to Google Play, and you can get these things. Or you can be a friend of ours on Facebook, Twitter, that and the like. And in it there was a study by the Rand Corporation saying that children living next to medical marijuana dispensaries have a greater probability of smoking marijuana as children. And you can read that whole study and the links to the study there on KIDOTalkRadio.com. But another, tough story for those of you that love the legal weed. This is from the Washington Post. Hardly should be confused with the National Review. The first 2 states to legalize recreational marijuana are starting to grapple with teenagers growing the use of highly potent pot, even as both boost the industry and reach huge profits concerning sales. Remember, Colorado last week announced $1 billion that they've made from the pot sales. Well, this is what you're not going to get from the television stations, the radio stations, the newspapers, with the exception of this story that's buried in the Washington Post. Though the legal purchase age is 21 in Colorado and Washington, parents, educators, and physicians say young people are easily getting a hold of edibles infused with THC, which you know is the component that causes a high. And, the concentrations are very high. Apparently, from a substance called shatter, which is a brittle honey-colored substance that is heated and then inhaled through a special device. Now, what happens is you have kids having physical and mental health problems. Quote, underage kids have unbelievable access to nuclear strength weed. Andrew Brandt, a Boulder, Colorado software executive whose son got hooked while in high school. So we can agree to disagree about legalizing weed, but there is a consequence to doing that. How do you stop it from impacting the young people? How do you stop it from, because it's more accessible, it's at home, one could say like alcohol, you have the kids getting the bottle of gin, now they're grabbing a joint and infusing it with gosh knows what, and we're opening up Pandora's box. Remember, there isn't one parent, one educator, one person involved in the education of young children, along with law enforcement, that think that marijuana is good for you. Right? Remember, underage kids are using nuclear strength weed. Now, hopefully our friends in law enforcement at Drug Free Idaho, at Keep Idaho, and other groups that are banding together to stop the massive influx of cash and influence into the gem state when it comes to this, we'll take a look at this and say, look, guys, you don't have to watch the movie Chronic to understand this is going to impact our kids. And I would urge people in the media, you know the types that are always talking about working for you and doing this and that. There needs to be a massive public service campaign, and we will be the tip of the spear, which we are already, to say, this is what's going on. You want your kid to be hitting the edibles. Think about that. With some marijuana products averaging 68% THC, exponentially greater than the pot baby boomers once smoked, calls to poison control centers and visits to emergency rooms have risen. The Denver Children's Hospital, the Children's Hospital of Colorado, treatment for vomiting, paranoia, psychosis, and other acute cannabis-related symptoms have jumped from 777 in 2015 to what we see today, which is triple that. In fact, if you go back before 2015, back to 2005, in 10 years, it's gone from 161 to over 700 to triple that. Is that what we want in our elementary schools, in our preschools, our high schools, our colleges? KIDO Talk Radio time is 8:57. Traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. And Kevin Miller here. Before we get to Glenn Beck, here's another issue that you need to think about. Stacy Gruber, an associate professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, who studies how marijuana affects the brain, says, quote, the brain is abnormally vulnerable during adolescence. Policy seems to have outpaced science, and in the best of all possible worlds, science would allow us to set policy when we're talking about allowing young people edibles. What was it, that report we had out of Oregon, where you had young kids going home sick because the brownies were laced with the cannabis? Just something to consider. And we will continue to hear both sides of the argument when we're talking about keeping Idaho drug-free or letting the weed run wild and free. Hey, don't go anywhere. Glenn Beck is next, followed by Dave Ramsey, Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Ray Amaya. Outstanding job. God bless everybody.